Now to a lighthouse investigation. The Archdiocese of Milwaukee has nearly 200 parishes across 10 counties in southeastern Wisconsin.
And like other cities, Milwaukee's Archdiocese maintains a list of priests who have been credibly accused of sexual abuse. But 20 years after creating that list, some are wondering why a deceased Milwaukee priest is named on alleged abuser lists in 2 other states, but is nowhere to be found on Milwaukee's.
A TMJ4 Lighthouse investigation uncovers why. Lighthouse journalist Ben Jordan explains what we found.
That is a difficult thing to overcome, and I couldn't overcome it as a child.
These black and white photos take Mike Bielmeyer back to a childhood full of horrible secrets.
Between the ages of 11 and 12, I was sexually assaulted by 3 different priests.
Abuse that changed Mike's life so dramatically, he worked with the Wisconsin Department of Justice to make sure abusive priests are brought into the light. He is the only victim who took part in the state's Clergy and Faith Leader Abuse Initiative, willing to share his story publicly.
But I never told anyone as a child. I never even told my best friends. No one knew.
Why not?
You're ashamed. You're so ashamed. And like I said, you're made to feel complicit.
Mike knows the importance of Catholic organizations publicly naming credibly accused priests. He says it gives survivors an opportunity to heal.
If someone brings an allegation against a priest, I believe them.
Dozens of archdioceses and Catholic religious orders across the country started naming restricted priests and alleged abusers on their websites 2 decades ago. 48 priests are on Milwaukee's restricted list, a list about evenly split between priests who are dead and still alive. But one deceased Milwaukee priest with an accusation of sexual abuse on his record is not on the restricted list, Father Mark Santo. Mike and Father Santo never crossed paths, but Mike believes Santo's name needs to be known.
If I were a victim of this guy and he died and no one would believe me because he's dead, that doesn't in any way justify their ignoring of the facts of the past.
Facts that first came to light in a report from Robert Hergeth, an investigative reporter for the Chicago Sun-Times who has studied clergy abuse, including Santo's case, for years.
He's accused of molesting at least 1 kid. The Missouri diocese that has a list got their information from the Servites, but all they know is that he's credibly accused.
This death notice shows Father Santo was born in Milwaukee. He went to a seminary in St. Francis. And after decades of serving in parishes, schools, and prisons in 9 different cities, Santo came home to Milwaukee in 1993 to become an archdiocese priest. The Milwaukee Archdiocese says Santo never served in ministry during his time in Milwaukee. The Archdiocese says they aren't aware of what he did instead. According to Hergeth's reporting that we confirmed, Santo is on an alleged abuser list from one of his placements in Springfield, Missouri. BishopAccountability.org says the allegation came 10 years after Santo died, and the alleged abuse happened sometime in the 1960s. After Hergeth's story was published, Detroit's Archdiocese added Santo to their list, but Santo is nowhere to be found on the other lists, including Milwaukee's.
And in this instance, the full truth has not been told, and I don't understand why.
The Milwaukee Archdiocese says it's committed to transparency on this issue, yet Archbishop Jerome Listecki declined my interview request. Instead, his chief of staff agreed to share their criteria for naming a restricted priest. A single allegation against a priest can land them on the restricted list, but only if they're alive. If one allegation is made after a priest is dead, the Milwaukee Archdiocese won't investigate to determine if the accusation can be substantiated. When asked for an explanation, the chief of staff wrote in an email that it's because, quote, The priest cannot be confronted with the allegation or questioned to defend himself. Because Father Santo has one known accuser, Milwaukee's Archdiocese doesn't include Santo on its list. Additionally, even if multiple allegations were to come in against a deceased priest like Father Santo, there has to be a, quote, consistent pattern of behavior that demonstrates enough evidence for substantiation.
I've studied this, not just locally, but nationally, and the Archdiocese of Milwaukee is on the low end of disclosure for Archdiocese.
Like Mike, Peter Isley isn't connected to Father Santo's case, but he is another clergy abuse survivor.
Imagine you're the victim of him.
Peter is one of the founding members of SNAP, the survivors network of those abused by priests, and Peter believes Father Santo should be on Milwaukee's list.
If it's true, you're on the list. If it's not, you're not. Okay? So that's the criteria, period.
Because of the Milwaukee Archdiocese policy, survivors like Peter and Mike are left to wonder if a priest like Father Santo is not on Milwaukee's list. Are there others? Reporting in Milwaukee, Ben Jordan, TMJ4 News.
Lighthouse is TMJ4's new specialty reporting team featuring in-depth reporting, exclusive interviews, and investigations like the one you just saw. To see more of their work, visit tmj4.com/lighthouse.